Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Mary Maisel, and in this video, I'll be presenting Below the Bridge, Understanding and Expanding the Use of Osteobiography in Biological Archaeology. Thank you, whoever and wherever you are, for taking the time to tune into this video and spend some time with me looking at my research on the theory of osteobiography. I hope that each and every one of you are staying safe, happy, and healthy. The accessibility of knowledge and the understanding of archaeological research are at the heart of this project, and I would like to say thank you to everyone at TimeSifters for the opportunity to present and share this research. If you have any questions that come to mind during this presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will be including my contact information at the end of the presentation, and I'm happy to speak with anyone about this topic or others relating to anthropology and archaeology. Before I begin, I just want to make it known that the images included in this presentation are of human skeletal remains. They are not terribly graphic, but just as a precaution, I wanted to offer a warning to anyone who might be a bit squeamish. So what is an osteobiography? During my research, I worked within the notion that osteobiography is a style of writing that allows biological and bioculturally focused anthropologists and archaeologists a form that highlights osteological, medical, and forensic findings related to a set of skeletal remains in a way that is comprehensible to an audience with little to no anthropological background. Osteobiography achieves this through the use of a narrative format. This style allows us to take findings and add in what Adrian Pritzelis refers to as insights into the potential stories a site has to offer, and present all of that together as a story that conveys both the known facts and the intuitive assumptions of the researcher. A brief summary of the conclusions of my research can be stated as: the balance of scientific and narrative interpretation allows for an understanding of the impact the form of osteobiographical writing can have on the accessibility of archaeological information. I'd like to take a few moments to set our scene and discuss the site. Different circumstances lead to the discovery of archaeological sites, and in many cases, archaeologists are not the first people to come across them. The skeletal remains being discussed in this presentation were found due to a fire, which led to their discovery by firefighters and law enforcement. This site is non-traditional in other ways as well. There is no formal site name, and no in-ground excavation was carried out. However, the findings are no less significant because of this. Sites, especially those in urban archaeology, do not always yield what we expect. One of the benefits of osteobiography is the fluid way in which the style allows us to contextualize archaeological findings, a paramount part of any report. The site I am discussing in this presentation was in an urban waterfront environment, occupied and discovered during the 20th century post-progressive era. The burial location was an unintentional natural crypt. What I mean by this is that the body was not put in its final resting place on purpose. The location of the body, and subsequently the skeletal remains, were within the crawl space located through a trapdoor accessible from the underside of the bridge. I hope the image on this slide can give you a visualization of what the site may have looked like. The unintentional nature of this burial led to the preservation that has allowed my research to take place. Based on personal effects and other objects found within the crawl space indicate that this individual had been utilizing the space for some time and did not just decide to sleep there the night they died. It might be helpful to think of this death as an at-home passing. There were items located within the crawl space that indicate a significant amount of time spent there by the individual. The skeletal remains were discovered wearing several layers of heavy winter clothing and in a sleeping bag. The combination of fabric coverings and the sealed design of the crawlspace limited the environmental factors that were allowed to act on the remains. Such environmental factors include rodent predation, humidity, and water. For this research, the osteological analysis focuses on the cranium, which is the skull without the mandible or lower jaw. However, for this video, I will be expanding the original presentation to include additional laboratory photos to facilitate a greater understanding of the overall situation. From soft tissue that was still attached to the skeletal remains at the time of discovery, we know that this individual was Caucasian with light-colored hair, blonde to medium brunette. We also know this individual to be male, approximately 35 years of age, and between 5 feet 5 inches and 5 feet 8 inches in height. On this image, we will be focusing on the highlighted areas, working from red to yellow to blue and finishing with purple. Beginning in the left quadrant of the maxilla. Most notable here is the amalgam filling in the first premolar. This filling indicates to us that the individual was not born into the homelessness they were experiencing at the time of their death. We can draw this conclusion because this particular molar would have erupted at about 12 years of age, and the dental care needed to have a filling like this placed in their early teen years would have come at some expense. The dental health of this individual severely deteriorated as they aged, and presumably during their experience with homelessness. Again, in the upper left quadrant, there is evidence of antemortem tooth loss based on the bone reabsorption in the area where premolar 2 and molar 1 should be. Moving to the right quadrant. No tooth in this quadrant is unaffected. Caries lesions are found on premolars 1 and 2 as well as on molar 1. These caries lesions are recognizable as the pits or holes you see in these teeth. There is also a severe chipping of the second incisor and canine, visible above the blue highlighted area. The post-mortem loss of molars 2 and 3 is evident. You can see in the purple highlighted area the pits where the roots of these teeth would be. Now, looking at the mandible, we can see there is similar pathology here as to what we just looked at in the maxilla. There is evidence of antemortem tooth loss in the mandible based on bone reabsorption, which can be seen in the yellow highlighted areas. There is also additional evidence of post-mortem tooth loss from the mandible indicated in the red highlighted areas. The teeth pictured here on this slide were those that were lost post-mortem and able to be recovered at the site, or those that have since been removed in a laboratory setting. This additional dentition ranges from complete to fragmentary teeth from the maxilla and mandible. There is evidence of more dental work on another tooth, which is detailed in the image on the right. Looking straight on at the face of this individual, we can see that there is antemortem trauma to the region below the right eye orbit and above the right side of the maxilla, indicated by the green highlighted area. The break here was in the process of healing at the time of death. Trauma like this is most likely the result of some kind of interpersonal violence. Below the area of antemortem trauma, in the purple highlighted region, there is a bone abscess. An abscess such as this is typically the result of a bacterial or fungal infection, in combination with the caries lesions previously discussed, that you now have a different view of in this photo. This area of the body would have been very, very painful for the individual. So, how do we take the facts and findings I have just shared with you all and package them in a way that is interesting and digestible to an audience that includes a great variety of people, not just other anthropologists and archaeologists? During the course of my research, I read osteobiographies by several anthropologists and archaeologists, including Dr. Alexis Boutin and Dr. Jill Neitzel. During my literature review, I focused heavily on the language used by these authors to discuss their human subjects. How these authors chose to name and voice their subjects was one of my key interests. I found that taking some creative liberty was acceptable as long as it was done respectfully and with as much historical and culturally relevant context as possible. This is how I came to the decision to name the individual that has been the subject of my research, but not to include any spoken dialogue from this individual in my osteobiography, Below the Bridge. As storytelling in archaeology is becoming more and more prominent, my hope is that osteobiographies are able to function in a way that bridges gaps between anthropological and archaeological subfields, as well as gaps between what can be considered as academic reading and reading for pleasure. Additionally, by producing work that is as informative as it is digestible, I believe osteobiographies can function as a means to facilitate discussion around archaeological findings that can have an impact on current sociocultural and sociopolitical situations. In the case of the individual we have looked at here, using osteobiographical narrative and their subsequent presentation will assist in the facilitation of discussion about how societies treat and deal with death when the deceased is a member of a marginalized group. The importance of this area of thought and questioning stems from the collective human interest in lived experience. In many cases, skeletal remains confront us with thoughts of our own mortality and can cause us to question our own humanity. By interacting with skeletal remains as dignified individuals and as material culture, whether that be in a laboratory or a literary setting, we will be able to work towards a greater understanding of humanity and the respect we owe one another, regardless of social and physical characteristics in life or death. As I previously mentioned, in lieu of a formal question and answer period, I am happy to speak with anyone who has questions or other ideas about this presentation, the research I conducted, or other topics relating to anthropology and archaeology. I currently work as an archaeologist and am thrilled to be able to share this presentation with you all. I hope it has been an enjoyable and informative video. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you.